So hey there fellow YouTubers, it's Frank Bush here again. In today's video I'm going to be building out a monster-sized USB solar generator. So the purpose of this build is really, I've bought battery banks that I've taken out into the field and I've shown in previous videos, and I find the capacity of them just isn't enough if you want to rely on them for days and days on end. So I'm going to solve that problem in today's video in this build out, where this unit will have the ability to run multiple USB devices, and it'll be able to take solar power in from either conventional solar panels or from the folding solar panels that are USB based that I've shown in previous videos. So I'll cut angles here. I'll zoom in and start walking through the details of the build, yeah? Okay, well, the first thing to talk about is the battery that I'm using. So these are actually 4 batteries. It's 4 3.2 volt 25 ampere hour batteries that are lithium iron phosphate. So they're rated at 4,000 cycles. So this should last me well over 10 years. And when it comes to that rating, that's based on the premise that after 4,000 cycles, the battery will only be able to recharge up to 80% full capacity. That doesn't mean it doesn't still have a significant amount of usable power, but that's just how they rate batteries. So I didn't put it in the video, but what I've done was I just got an aluminum bar from the hardware store. I drilled some holes in it and I strapped all these batteries together in parallel. This is the positive line here and this is the negative line here, just to give me some kind of connectors on the end and that kind of thing, and connect them all together in parallel. And I really wanted to buy these as individual batteries because in future projects I may potentially turn around and split this battery in half and have just 2 50 ampere hour batteries. I don't know, we'll see as time goes on. But at this point in time, this is the rig that I've set up. So like I say, this is about 320 watts worth of power. To give you an idea of the 3.2 volts times the 100 amps is your 320 watts. So that's how much power is being stored in there. And now I'll shift gears and start walking through the circuitry and the different components that I have for the project, yeah? Okay, so I've got 2 of these units here, and they're DC to DC converters. They're really buck step-down converters. So what they do is these will take power off the solar panel. I'll hook on MC4 connectors and that kind of thing. But they'll take power in off the solar panels, and then they'll feed it off and into this bus bar. And then they're rated at 12 volts in as their official rating, and an output of 3.7 volts at 10 amps. So I've got 2 of them, so I can feed in parallel and drive in up to 20 amps per hour. So when it comes to my battery, just off these units, I could charge the battery from dead to full in 5 hours, to give you an idea. Now the thinking really is, I've got this bus bar that sits in the middle, and that's where all the wires will just feed into things, and this will feed off and connect off to the battery. And then here I've got little battery modules that are USB based, and these ones are designed for lithium iron phosphate as well. So when it comes to these things, the one thing you got to be mindful of is these little battery modules. Some of them are rated for lithium ion, which has a slightly higher voltage, and some of them are rated for lithium iron phosphate batteries, which has the 3.7 voltage. So the thinking really is, as a maximum voltage, sorry. So the thinking really is, I'm going to have these as inputs. So this will be the USB coming off the folding solar panel, and this will be the ones coming off conventional solar panels. And then on the other side, I'll have outputs where these are all USB-C. I'll just see if I can show you a close-up of that. Let's see. So they're all USB-C. So I can have multiple USB-C devices connected up. And to give you an idea, these are simple little units. These are 4 of them that are attached together. But they've got a positive and a negative, a positive and a negative, positive, negative, that kind of thing. I'll end up wiring those all together and then feeding off to this bus bar. And then I've got a little more advanced battery module. I really like these ones actually. And they've got multiple different USB connections, so I can go out to micro USB or USB-C or conventional USB you know, inputs and outputs. It's got a lightning connection that sits on the side and that kind of stuff, so I can charge, you know, Apple products. So I've got 2 of those. And one of the things that I'll kind of mention early on in the video is when this powers up, you'll see this light up as a percentage of charge. Now that's based on lithium ion batteries. So they have a peak voltage that sits around 4.2 volts, whereas with the lithium iron phosphate, the peak voltage should be up around 3.7. So it's about, you know, half a volt lower. So when it comes to this meter, it'll show that, oh, I'm only running at 2% or 5%, when in reality, because I'm just using a different chemistry of battery, there'll actually still be a lot of capacity still in the batteries, but these are specifically designed for lithium iron. But I wanted to have it where these different USB connections and, you know, lightning and all that kind of stuff, I just wanted to have a wide range of different things that I'd be able to plug in. So I use these purely as outputs, really, and the meters will just give me a rough idea of what's going on with the battery. Really, when it comes to 80% of the running off the battery, it's going to show it, say, 5% charged, even though it's not. But when it reaches up to 100%, it just lets me know that the battery's fully charged again. So I've got 2 of those units because I want to be able to really have it where all of these are outputs. So I want to be able to plug in lots of different devices and be able to run them all at the same time. And on that side of the equation, it'll all just be inputs that are coming in. So this will be a fairly simple build. There's not really a lot to it, and I'll just get on with it, yeah? All right, so the first order business, like I say, I'll give you a close-up of that to see, for the people that want to see the fine details of things. But the wire exposure is a little thin on these, so I'm just going to take my strippers and strip off a bit of extra wire here. Well, probably use a tiny bit more. Just pop those off and set that to the side. Try to keep my debris to a, you know, dull roar, if you will. But I tend to be a bit of a savage when it comes to doing these types of things. If I know there's going to be people that are in electrical that watch this video and be like, oh, you're not following every rule and blah, blah, blah. But either way, gets the job done, right? So, like I say, I just stripped the wires back a bit, so I've got a bit to work with. Now, the thinking really is, like I say, I've got an input on the one side and an output on the other. So the input is positive, negative, the red and the black, and the output is the yellow and black. So on the positive coming in, I'm going to want the female end when it comes to my MC4. So I'll just kind of keep that all together so it doesn't make a huge mess. In fact, I'll just set that aside for a second. So the thinking really is I want to slide on my MC4 little locking cap piece and put on the little sleeve, and then I want to, I want to use the male end of the connectors. I'll show you this in close-up. So there's kind of a male and a female connector where the male goes into the female, obviously, and I'm going to use the male one where I'm just going to set it in place. I'm going to take my tool, and I'll show a close-up on that in a second. But really, I just want to crimp that in place. I'm not on a very good angle here. 2 seconds. Let's see if I can. It's hard to get these things in camera and make it look okay and stuff, but I want to just crimp these on so that they're connected. And like I say, trying to show it in a good camera angle just isn't working, so I'll try to shift gears and just do things the way I normally would more. I'm still trying to be as conscious as I can about getting this on camera, but I want to crimp that on, make sure it's a nice solid connection on there. And just, see, it wasn't on tight enough. So You always want to kind of check your crimps that way. They can be problematic. I always have an issue with crimping on wires and stuff and having it work well and that kind of stuff, but such is the nature of life. So that seems to be on there okay. In fact, quite often I like just using my needle nose pliers, my multi-tool if you will. Just being more of a bushcrafty kind of guy, like using that. It's familiar terrain. So that seems to be on there fairly snug now. So the thinking really is, I've got the sleeve. I'll just slide that. I was lucky that that actually went the way it did, because I'm going to slide that on, and then slide this on. And when I slide this on, you should hear a click. Hear that click noise? Hopefully the camera picked that up okay. But the thinking really is, when that clicks, it kind of locks it in. And you'll see, hopefully you'll see the little male end inside there. And then all I want to do is kind of screw these tight. And there's tools that they have for this stuff, but I find I've got sufficient hand strength to just set it on. Now for the other one, it's the same kind of thing. I'm going to use the female inside now. I'll just move that out of the way. And put that in place. I think I accidentally put the other one on backwards. Hopefully not. No, should be okay. So I'm just going to slide those onto the wire now. And now same kind of thing again, where I just want to set the metal, and I like to put it right deep inside there as much as I can, if you will, before you get to the wire. I'm just going to use my pliers this time, because like I say, I'm a bit of a savage. But I just like the control I get off of using these. And this is where, like I say, I know electrical people, but such is life. I'll give that a good solid squeeze. Just check that. It seems to be on there pretty snug. It's not going anywhere. So the same kind of thing. Slide this in now. I heard the click. Allows me to kind of wind this up now. Set that in there. And you see how the pointy bits are facing towards the end of the wire. I know I'm not describing that well, but these things are so simple. It's, if you don't know how to put on an MC4 connection, I always make a rat's ass of it. But if you don't know how to put on MC4 connections, there is videos that walk through that. But hopefully this showed you enough to pretty basic of what's to be done. So I've got to do the exact same thing for this one. I won't bother showing that on camera. So I'll just cut and do it, and then I'll come back for the next step, yeah? Okay, so I've got the MC4 connections hooked up to both of the step-down buck converters. Now the thinking really is they're going to be feeding into this bus bar. So I'm going to have to put some sort of connection on here, if you will, that'll allow me to do that. So what I have here are spade terminals. So now these are pretty basic. I'll just pop this open. So hopefully the camera's picking that up all right. Look as such. And these are rated for number 10 gauge wire. So everything's kosher in that regards. And they're pretty basic. I'll come up and do a close-up if I can here. Where I just want to slide the wire inside. I like to have it where it sticks out a little bit on the other end. And I'll just grab my trusty pliers and just crimp them on there. And I like to really give them a good squeeze. Make sure that they're not going anywhere. That seems on there fairly good. I give it a little bit more just because I'm picky about those things. In fact, normally you would use your crimping tool and there's a yellow that's on there that shows you of it matches to the yellow of the thing, but I'll just really give that the gears. because like I say, I hate it when these things come loose. So either way, that's on there rock solid. I'll do the same on the black one now. Hopefully I'm keeping that in camera okay, but let me just check my camera. Yeah, we're all right. So I'll do the exact same thing where I leave it sticking out a little bit on the end there, just so I know that it's fully in there. And I know, I really got to get out of the habit of using my pliers, but old habits die hard. So, like I say, I'll use the yellow spot on the crimping tool to slide that in as such. Really trying to get a good angle on that if I can. And make sure that's on there really solid. Well, sometimes I overwork these just too much and end up trashing them, but I don't know, I just find them awkward, the way that these things connect. To me, it amazes me that we haven't come up with a better way to connect to a wire yet. I mean, there's obviously lots of different options out there, but I've got to do the same for the other one, and then I'll move on to the next step, yeah? Okay, so now I've got both of them done up where, like I say, I've got the MC4 connections, and then I've got the spade terminals that'll feed off to the bus bar, yeah? And then the exact same thing sitting on the other one. So I'll shift camera angles, and then I'm going to start to mount these down to the board now and start to lay things out where they're going to be permanently, yeah? Okay, well, we'll just go one piece at a time. So I want to be right up near the one end here. I'm just putting some marks to give me an idea where I'm going with this. And now I'll put in the first one. Leave a bit of room to breathe. And now I'm going to take that, I'll just use this one, slide the washer in underneath. There's a little edge here where I can kind of hook onto, if you will. I'm in. This is going to be fairly tight, but such is life. Do the, and make sure that's square. Do the same on the other side now. Come on now. There we go. There. So that's braced on there pretty solid. Doesn't appear to be going anywhere. Do the same with the next one. And I know I should do pilot holes and all that kind of business, but I do kind of go just free form when it comes to a lot of this stuff. It's just the nature of me. I could stop and measure everything out and blah 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 and just make sure everything's perfect, but I know that potentially this is going to be used in the back of my truck and other things out in the field where I'm not overly concerned about keeping everything perfect. I just want it to function well, and I want it to be able to last through time. To me, those are the two critical bits. And whether something's spaced a millimeter or an inch, you know, here or there, it's almost a moot point, really. As long as there's enough space for it to do what it needs to do, I'm happy. Form fits function. All right. That seems to be on there pretty good. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Excellent. So that's the thinking, really, is those will feed off to the solar panels. I'll probably mount these down so that they kind of stay to that direction. And we'll get to that in a minute. And let's make sure I'm still in the camera. Yeah, okay, good. Now I want to brace down that bus bar. So the top two ones are going to have a run that's going off to the battery. So I don't really want to hook to those. And in fact, I'm going to have to stop and shift angles here. I need to grab a different screwdriver than the one I have available. So yeah, let me just switch gears and kind of organize myself for the next step, yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to want to put this bus bar down, you know, within reason, pretty well right in the center of the board. And just have the wires feed off to the different components. So I had to just go and grab a flathead screwdriver because I didn't want to toggle my electric screwdriver between different bit heads throughout. That could be awkward. I'll make sure that all looks like it's pretty square. And it does. Now I'll just set in. That looks good to me. Alright, now the bus bar is strapped on there. And like I say, so I don't have to screw around with the drill. What I'm going to do now is, on the second screw down, or set of screws I should say, I'm just going to loosen those off. As such. Now, here I'm going to have to make a decision of which one's positive and which one's negative. So, arbitrarily, I'm just going to say I'm going to connect the yellows to this side. I'll just set those both into the one. Because I'm hooking in so many different USB devices, in fact, let's see if I can maybe even come around just to keep things clean. I know it's not going to be clean, but such is life. Let's open that up a bit more. Let's see if I can just set that in on there. Now normally you'd have a bigger bus bar and that kind of stuff and connect everything onto its own. And let me just work it out here. I might even do that. Let's just see. I'll stop and do a little bit of testing. All right, so if I feed these two into this one and these into these, and we feed that set. So, all right, so these two into here, these into here, those into there. Yeah, now we should be able to do it. So I don't have to do the kludgery I'm about to show. Let's just pop that for a second. And loosen the next one down. Oh, loosen the next one down. Like I say, I know the electrical people were already shaking their head at me, but this is a bit of kludgery. I like to just kind of do things savage style, but that's me. All right, so I've made the decision pretty well at this point in time that this side is going to be my positive. All right, so that's on. And I'll hook that on as such. I'm trying to keep this all in the camera to look clear and stuff to the people. There. So they're on there really solid now. They're not going anywhere. Let's feed that through. In fact, I might have to. This might be a little tight. I might even have to switch this up, given the nature of the length of the wires. Just to make it that everything's clean and organized. 2 more seconds, people. And in fact, let's just make sure they all have enough room to slide things into it. All right, let's just set that one to the side for a second. So put this black wire in here and this one in here. I just want to have it where they're sitting, you know, equal to each other across, right? But given the length of the wire, it was kind of a hokey situation there. So put that on. Put that on. All right, we got one connected. That's on there really, really solid. Black on the black side. There we go. Yellow on the yellow side. In fact, can I go under and on? We'll see. Just to keep the wires kind of from popping up too much. Wires always become a mess. All right. Now they're both wired in. Excellent. So I'm going to pause for a second. And I'm not going to hook on these battery modules quite at this point in time. I'll push those off to near the end, but we're already at the point now where I could plug solar panels into this, and it's going to feed off to 3.7 volts. So I'm well on my way, if you will, yeah? So I'll shift camera angles here and get some wires ready, because the next step is going to be, we want to be able to hook onto the battery. So we're going to have some wires coming off the end here, you know, and we're going to feed those off and connect onto the battery, and that way we can start to kind of wire things up, if you will, yeah? Okay, so now I've got two pieces of number 10 wire. It's overkill, but it was the wire that I had readily available. Now the thinking really is going to be, I've got these ring terminals, and now this is going to be the end that connects onto the battery, and they fit on there nicely, so that's perfect. So I'm going to want to attach, I'll grab my pliers here. I'm going to want to attach one of those to each wire. Make sure that's really on there solid. And use the crimping tool as okay, so that one's on pretty solid. Do the same to the positive. Slide that in as such. Set it on. And like I say, on the yellow spot, because I'm working with the yellow, which is 8 and 10, I think, if I remember correctly. So, all right, so I'm ready to hook onto my battery on that end. And now on the other end, we're going to need 2 spade terminals to be able to connect to this bus bar. So I'll just feed that in. I see a little bit sticking out the end. I'll try to break my savage rules and just go straight to the crimping tool. Seems on there pretty solid. It's always good to test your connections that way. Give them a good tug. If it looks like it comes off and you need to put on a new one, do so. It's a lot better than working with shoddy connections that'll give later on in time. Into the yellow spot. I like to just kind of really squeeze it all the way along. That seems to be connected pretty solid now. So that's good. Now I'll see if I got a bit of wire, or tape, I mean. So now the thinking really is, Like I say, these are going to feed off to the battery, but I want to kind of keep them together as a set as well, so there's no mystery to what's going on here. So I know that the negative will be on the left and the positive on the right, but I'm going to just put a little bit of tape on here just to keep things that they kind of stay together. This isn't critical by any means, but just help keep the wire mess to a dull roar. So I'll kind of line them up so that within reason, come up an inch or two, and just give it a wrap there to kind of keep them as a set. All right, and like I say, they're going to end up connecting into, just put on my glasses for a second, and they're going to end up connecting into the screws on the end here. All right, so like I say, negative on this side. Just confirm all of that. I'm going to hook the, in fact, I'll even come in underneath these wires to kind of, even though that one's not really in the way, keep everything as tight to the board as I can. I'll feed in the negative to the negative and the positive to the positive. There we go. Kind of what I wanted to see. I'll screw those down. It's on pretty good. Got to be careful with this stuff because these are brass, the bus bar. It's only a cheapie that I got off eBay, but you don't want to strip it. But you do want things to be on there really snug, right? So either way, we're kind of connected in that regard. And now, like I say, these will simply feed off to the battery, and I'll hook that on near the end. But I'll stop now and kind of shift camera angles again. And it looks like we're going to start to move into hooking these bad boys on. Okay, well, this is where it's going to start getting entertaining for the electricians of the world. So I've got speaker wire that's commonly available in my home. And on the speaker wire, there's a white line on one of the wires to let me know which wire is which. But the thinking really is, I'll try to come in close on the camera here. So there's two holes that exist. One of them's right. Let me just grab something that's more appropriate to point with. So one of them's right there, and that's the battery positive. And then on the other side, right here, I've got a battery negative. So I'm going to connect the speaker wires onto these 2 points. And I'm going to do that for both of the units that I have that are this style to begin with. Now, these battery modules will be the first ones I hook up, yeah? So I'm really going to turn around and kind of figure out where the battery module is going to sit on the board. And I want them right near the edge of the board. And that way I can just kind of plug in on the end of things. And I want to give myself a little bit of length, but not too much, where I'm going to take this wire and kind of split it a bit, where I know that I've got enough to connect to both terminals. And then I'll give it a bit of extra room. Let me just pull out my trusty multi-tool again. And I'm going to snip that about there. And I'm going to do the same kind of peeling of the wires on this end, if you will. Just to give me a bit of wire to work with. Now, I'm going to take my wire stripper and strip off some of this protective coating. And in fact, the wire strippers are so powerful for wires this thin, it ended up taking a bit with it. So what I'm going to do is break every rule and have people get all blah, but pull off a bit with some melted plastic. Just to expose the ends of the wires. There we go. Looks like I got enough exposed to solve the problem. So now, the part of the wire that had the white strip on it, so go and look for that now. So this part of the wire had the white. So I'm going to use the white as the positive just because, well, we're here. And I'm going to, in fact, just kind of twist that up a bit. I know the camera's probably not picking that up that well, but now the B positive on here, I'm going to feed into there, if I can. This one was a bit of a mess. This is the one we tried to crimp in it. And just get rid of that little extra piece. So, here's I want to kind of feed through the hole that is where the B positive is. And I'm in. There's definitely not a lot of room to work with there. And I'm just going to fold it on itself and twist it. Normally you would solder these connections, but I'm not overly worried about soldering this. I might put a dab on it again near the end of it just to make sure that everything's solid, but the fact that I went right through that hole and then braced onto it lets me know, yeah, it's probably pretty good. But either way, just for purity's sake, I'll bust out the soldering iron in a little bit here and kind of do it all properly. I want to feed this end through, and there's barely enough room to get these wires through. They're really, really tight. Might even try to come in the other side. Yeah, there we go. Like I say, feed that through, pinch it across, and wrap it on itself. So it's really just braced right on there. Now, when it comes to the other end now, like I say, the B positive, there's a B written on the back here. The B positive is the white line. So the white side is going to be the positive. I got to do the same process, so I'll stop and cut angles here. This is a bit finicky. I know it's not elegant camera work, but the thinking really is I want to put the same kind of wiring setup on this one so that the positive is connected to the white line on the cable. And so I'll go and do all that off camera, because like I say, I know it's not the most elegant to fiddle with just to get it to the point where I have two of these that are pretty well the same, yeah? So let me just cut here and I'll come back when that's all ready to go. So the unelegant task of getting the wires through those little tiny holes has been dealt with. And now I want to take the white and the white on both. I want to connect those together. This really, like I say, this is a trigger warning for the electrical people out there. They're really going to start to see it as like, oh, no, don't do that. That's unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. But one way or the other, we're into it now. And then the ones that don't have any color on the wire line. I'll start to braid those together. All right. And so if you're an electrical purist, you're definitely going to get more and more triggered as we go through here. But I'm just going to take this and fold it over on itself a bit. Make sure that there's lots of connection in that regard. Feed it into one of these spade connectors. So like I say, I want to be hooking it onto here, right? Onto that bus bar. So put it in about there. I know there's standoffs and everything else I should be using when it comes to this stuff, but I'm not really too worried about that. So that seems to be connected okay. Just because I'm dealing with a wooden board, I'm not overly worried about the standoffs. Standoffs are a way to kind of distance the circuit boards from the surface you're mounting to. Little plastic bars, if you will, if people aren't familiar with that kind of stuff. And they're really used to kind of allow you to mount to boards and metal and other things without having any conductivity issues with those. So now I'm just going to take a spot of tape and bust out my knife for a second. Try to do this a little cleaner than I have been. Just to keep those wires together. It's not really there for any other purpose. Oh, and I thought it was on there solid. Damn. All right, well, and that's why I say it's good to give them a good tug and stuff. That one was on there pretty solid, but that one wasn't. That's what happens when you don't check, right? Let's give that a little bit of a fold onto itself to give it some extra thickness. Set that in. It's a prime example of what I was talking about, though, of making sure that these things are crimped on super, super tight. You can turn around and set up a whole bunch of stuff, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. My connections aren't actually connected properly. You're wondering why, thinking things potentially are broken or, you know, that kind of stuff. But, all right, so we're there. So now in this situation, the one with the white on it was the positive. So I want to connect that to that side. In fact, I'll just close this knife so I don't gouge myself later. Let's just pop these open. There we go. And double confirm. Okay, the white one needs to go into there. Over on. And the other one into here. All right. So now, these two bad boys are pretty well ready to go. So the thinking really is I'm just going to test those before I go bracing them down, where let's just hook that onto the battery. Let's see what's going on here. I saw it light up for a second there. Hopefully I haven't done something. There we go. See, it shows 7%, but I know that that battery is far, far more charged than that. There's a little on-off button on the sides, just so you're aware. See, and that one says 3, feeding off the exact same battery bank. So it's good. We know that those are at least functioning and that kind of thing. So I'll pop that back off the battery, just so there's no electricity flowing through the setup. And like I say, this is where I think we're going to have trigger warnings for electrical people. But such is life, right? Okay, so now I've got a glue gun. I'm gonna glue gun that right down and onto the board. All right, and I need another glue stick because this is just cheapy. Picked it up at the dollar store kind of thing. Do the same on the other one. Now we're right at the point where there's just a good glob of it. All right, and I'm going to set that down. Well, that's it. And they're braced on there now. Not going anywhere. And like I said, I know that the electrical people are losing their minds right now if they're watching this video. So I'll even put some on here. Let that just kind of cool for a minute. Do the same on the other one. I'm really just wanting to pin these down to the board. There is clamps and stuff you can get. I know. Like I say, I'm probably going to see 50 comments in there about, oh, you know, there's these and there's these things and you can do this. And I'm with all that. But kludgery works too. All right, so do the same kind of thing more and more. And I'll do the same thing kind of along here. Just kind of brace it down a bit. All right. Maybe even a little bit in here. Like I say, I understand this. To anybody that's the serious electrical people, they're going to be losing their minds, so I get it. But one way or the other, I'll just give that a minute to cool now, but they seem to be on there all right. In fact, there's no sense in being shy. Let's just put that on there. All right. I'll just let that cool for a second. And then we'll rehook up the battery again. And we'll see that we're kind of off to the races. Hit the glue gun so it's not leaving glue all over my carpet. There we go. And they're on there pretty solid. Like I say, they're not really, you know, those glue guns, they're not obviously the same as bolting something down, but they're definitely not that bad. So, like I say, let's see if the camera is picking that up. Yep. All right. So, like I say, I'll turn around and just hook this back onto the positive and negative again. All right. And it shows you the inconsistency of these meters, yeah? They're both feeding off the exact same battery, sitting at the same voltage, everything else, but they got little gauges in them. And like I say, these are designed for lithium ion batteries. So they're going to be configured to be a little off, but to be feeding off the same stack and see one says 7, the other says 3. It's just, it shows you these aren't as accurate as most people would believe them to be. And in fact, I'll even shift angles here and kind of go in and show you here. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. Yeah, the camera might not be giving it justice. But either way, we're now hooked up to the point where we can start feeding off all these USBs that are along here, driving from the battery itself. So the next step will be to hook on the other little battery modules, but I wanted to hook these ones on first because they're really the most useful out of the bunch. Of the fact that they have the USB plugins and those types of things, to me is handy, whereas none of the other ones have that. They're more just plugging in the male end, if you will. But I'll stop and take a break here for a minute, and I'll set things up to move on to the next step, yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to do the exact same thing on these little units where I just connected the wires to the unit, where I've connected the one that has the white strip on it. See if I can see that on the camera or not. There's the white strip there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it's connected to the B+, which is the battery positive. So I'm going to do that same thing to these 3 others. And I thought about it while I was taking my break of potentially, I'm not going to go with all 4 of these. I think I'm going to keep 2 of these. Now these are like on little breadboards where you can just, or the circuit boards, PCB boards, where you can just snap them, yeah? So I think I'm going to use 2 on here, and I'm going to keep these 2 for a separate project in the future that I plan on doing. I just kind of thought about that while I was off camera. But like I said, it's the same kind of stuff that we saw going on when it came to wiring up these battery modules. You know, it's not the most elegant filming to turn around and show. I just did this one while I was dawdling on my break there. But I'm going to do that to the other 3. Then I'll wire them all together and hook them into the bus bar as well. I won't bother showing that on camera of the wiring. I'll just, when I get them all, the wires all hooked up, I'll then continue, yeah? Okay, so now I've wired up each one of these little units, the little battery module units. Now, the reason why I kind of have these separated as their own plug-in to the folding solar panels is because they're designed to reach a maximum of 3.7 volts output. See, what it is I can charge off, here, let me see if I can grab the charger. I get it plugged into the camera right now, so let me just switch over, and hopefully the camera's going to pick this up, but I can plug in and start charging right off of this unit here through the USB-C. I'm throwing a charge up and into the batteries here. Hold on. Let's hook those on. I'm throwing charge into the battery as we speak. And I could easily charge off this, but like I said, because these units are designed with lithium ion as their reference, it's going to want to throw a maximum charge voltage of, I believe it's 4.2 volts, which is a little bit too high for what lithium iron phosphate batteries are designed to handle. For them, 3.7 is really ideal. You can push it all the way up. I've read articles where you can push it all the way up to 4.2 volts feeding into here. And that, you know, if you go above that, there's risk of doing damage to the battery because you're throwing too high of a voltage. But to me, it's best to kind of wire things up to be optimized towards the batteries you're using. So these little charging units here are specifically designed for lithium iron phosphate. So when I plug them into the folding solar panels, I know I'm getting the exact same voltage that I'm going to get coming off of the larger solar panels, and I can have them all feeding in at the same time if I wanted to really rapid charge this battery, but not worry about driving the voltage too high and overcharging this battery. The concern that lies in it, I believe they call them dendrites, if I remember correctly. It's what happens inside the battery, where it's almost like stalactites, if you will, reaching across the layers of the battery, where they cause damage and then cause it that the battery no longer can take the charge. So really, these ones here are being set up purely for the folding solar panel. I could plug in to these and pull power off as well afterwards. All of these units, the power can go in and come out of them, but the voltage is really optimized on these ones. So needless to say, I'll stop throwing a charge in here at this point in time. But that's one of the good parts here. There's a lot of redundancies within the system. If one of these died, I could easily turn around and plug into here and use that and still, or I could plug into these units over here and they would still throw charge in. All of these things can have, you know, charge going in and out of the battery, so it's good in that regard. I'm just going to drop the battery off though entirely. And now I'm going to take each one of these individual units and I'm going to find the white wire because I know that that's the positives. And I'm going to grab each one and bind those together just as I did earlier, where that's the positive. That's the positive there. And that's the positive there. I'm going to take all of those, twist those all together just like I did with the Circuitry of the first time I did this. And like I say, I know the electrician people are going to not be happy with the way I go about doing things here, but, you know, functionally speaking, all this stuff still works, right? And to me, that's the heart of it. Oh, looks like a bit of copper poked me in the finger. But I'll take those 4 negative leads. Twist those all together now. I'm going to fold that over on the end. There we go. Yeah, I'm getting little blood pinpricks all over me. Such is life. But now I'll feed that in to the spade terminal. And if you ask most certified electricians, you're never supposed to hook more than 3 connections to the same terminal and that kind of stuff to be, you know, electrically safe and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to voltages this low, I don't really have heavy concerns. I mean, we're dealing with 3.2 volts, maybe 3.7 max, right? And then the amps that are going to be going through this are 4 or 5 amps, maybe at best. And I'm not expecting to be drawing heavy loads on this, so I'm not overly concerned. So that one seems to be connected pretty good. hook on the other spade one. Like I say, I like to have a little bit of the metal sticking out the end, just a minimal amount. Just lets me know that I'm on there good and solid. And I use the crimp as well. Okay, that should be on there good and solid. And I can see the white lines, so I know that that's going to end up connecting on to that side. If anything, these are going to be kind of reversed. I'm just stop and unscrew this and this one. Like I say, double check, because I don't want to have this wired up backwards in any way. Make sure all my cables all have the white on them. Okay, I feel confident in that regard. In fact, let's see if I can set those in that way. Can I even just give me a bit more length? I'm trying to be a purist about things, but it does become difficult. All right, now all four of those are going to be hooked up. That all seems pretty solid. And I'll stop here for a second and shift camera angles. I had my glue gun unplugged, so I've got to replug that in and warm that up. So let me just warm up the glue gun. I'll cut back and get these all mounted to the board as well, yeah? All right, well, the glue gun's heated up now, so we can get back to the kludgery. Come on now. Nice, good, healthy glob of it. I want to put that down right about there. And then, like I say, I'll just walk through each one of these now, and I'm not shy about the glue. And I'm giving a little bit of space in between each one of these just to keep the positives and the negatives separated from each other and that kind of thing. I don't want any wires that are of opposite charge touching each other in any way. That's never a good thing. And I know this looks like a jumbled ball of wires, because, well, it is. Such is the nature of life. There we go. Before that cools down. There we go. All right. And just as I did the overkill before, and like I say, I don't think I'm even going to bother with the soldering when it comes to the connections, because I just don't think it needs it. Normally I would, like 99.99999% of the time I would. But in this specific situation, I just don't think it's a requirement. Just the way I've jimmied on those wires to connect, that, you know, the way I connected them, it was, you know, knotted on, if you will, rather than just be a simple connection and then soldered down into place. But there we have it. So now we should have the ability to start plugging in the folding solar panels to throw into the batteries to take a charge now. And now the last pair that's in the set, like I say, these are USB-C. Sorry about the glue, but these are USB-C connections. And to give you an idea, these all throw different varying amounts of power into the battery or have a capacity to draw it out. When it comes to the LiFePO battery modules that are over on this side here, they can handle up to 2 amps input on each one of these. So, you know, I'm looking at 2, 4, 6, 8 amps that potentially are going into the battery. That would take, you know, 12, 14 hours or so. Well, whatever the math is there, it would take the better part of a full day to charge this battery from dead to full, just because of the level of amps, you know, it'd take, like I say, roughly about 12 hours or so coming off this, whereas coming off of the buck converters, because we're coming at 10 amps each, if those are throwing full current into the batteries, I could have it charged up in 5 hours off these, as opposed to 12 off this. And when it comes to these little USB units here, they have a capacity to throw in at 4.2 volts, mind you, because it's lithium ion based. They have the ability to throw in 3 amps each of current. So, you know, I could throw in 6 amps through those. And when it comes to these battery modules, they're at 2.4 amps, and like I say, once again, they're at the 4.2 volts going in. So, you know, potentially in emergency situations where I'm having an issue with this side of life, if you will, I could use these other ones at the higher voltage, knowing that it's just going to end up compromising my battery if I keep doing it through time, yeah? Whereas these two and these 4 here, they can all throw into the LiFePO battery for the next 10 years without issue. I don't have to worry about the dendrites forming or any of that business. You know, it's all safe. So, needless to say, I'll turn around and do the exact same thing. I won't bother even showing this on camera because you guys have seen it a couple times now, of connecting the wires onto here and hot gluing it down. And once I get all the wires connected on, I'll hot glue it down, and I'll probably throw that little part into the video. But then this build is pretty well ready to go. As part of the next scenes of the video, it's getting later in the day now, so I don't even think I'll be able to wrap this video up today. I'll probably do additional filming tomorrow or the next day, and don't worry, it'll all still be part of the same overall video that I put out on the web, but it may take me more than one day just to kind of get this video all together. But I'll finish up the build on this, and then tomorrow when the sun's out, hopefully, I'll plug in the folding solar panels on here and throw a charge in, and I'll do testing probably in this video before the end of night. I'll do testing on each one of these to make sure that the connectivity is happening with the batteries and all that. You'll see all that in this video. But I'm rambling at this point in time. Like I say, let me go off and just hook these on and get the better part of the builds completed, yeah? All right. So, got the wires hooked up on these two. And now, looking for the white to white. And we're almost done this build. I'll move on to some testing of the different connections just to make sure that that's all kind of working as expected. And then, like I say, I'll add it into the video when I take these out and plug them in and get a charge happening off them. Alright, but I need some spade connectors at this point in time, and I think they're in my other box, so I'll cut for a second here, and now I'll go grab the spade connectors. Do the same kind of process. Got to brace these down into place on this side, yeah? Okay, so the glue gun's pretty well heated up now. I'm just going to take these two devices now, and just like I did previously, a nice big healthy dole. Brace that to the board. Do the same with the next one. And brace that to the board. All right, and then I'll just do along the edges to really make sure it's set in place good and solid. I don't really like how close that is to that, so let's see if I can glue weld it down, if you will. Oh, I got someone at my door. All right, I'll stop it here. Sorry about that. Somebody's selling chocolates door to door. Such is life, right? All right. So I'll let that just sit and cool now for a minute. And now we'll move on to testing these different ports to make sure everything is fully functioning, yeah? That'll be the next scenes. Okay, so let's do some testing. I just went and double checked on these. They appear to be input only. So I'm not going to be able to test any output stuff. So I'll have to plug in the panels later on in the video. But either way, let's just make sure that these things are all firing up. Hey, look at that. And we have light. It works on the different ports. We'll try on the other unit. Works solid. There we have it. And now let's take my tablet here. And because these are USB to USB-C, or USB-C to USB-C, sorry. And so let's plug these in and just see. It lit up. Lets me know. Now it's interesting though. They claim that it would throw power out into the device, but in reality, the light's lighting up and that kind of thing. In reality, it's taken charge from my tablet and into the battery bank. We'll try the other one. That lights up as well. So that's what it is. These tend to be inputs. Like I say, I didn't hear a bing or anything that I normally would. So that tells me that this is taking a charge from my batteries in my tablet rather than the other way around. So that, which either way, that's still fine. It's unfortunate when they sell these things on eBay, you know, oh, it can do everything under the sun and blah, blah, blah. But then when you actually start to test the units, it's like, oh, it's only one directional. So really, these are all charging units going into the battery bank. And let me just shift my tablet there. And let's plug in a couple of these, see if I can pull out a couple of my lights. I mentioned this in the last video where, you know, lighting systems and that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can quickly grab a couple more of these lights to show you that, yeah, we can get a few of them going all at the same time without issue. Oh. So, same kind of thing, just a bunch of USB ones. Well, that'll do it. I'm going to have to dig further through bags to find more, but as you can see, I can now produce a fairly good lighting system in that regard. And it does put a load on the battery, because now I'm drawing a couple amps, right? but each one of these within reason is pulling about an amp's worth of power. So I'm pulling 3 amps off of the 100 ampere hour battery. So, and then like I said, potentially I could turn around and have it where I'll just plug this back in and let it draw some power off my tablet, because there's no harm in that. Then I can have power flowing in and out of the device all at the same time, right? And like I say, I'm not taking a charge. Hopefully I'm not taking a charge. It's actually drawing power from the battery. So that's exactly what it is. If I'm able to have power flowing into this through these units and potentially through these units, I've got a little hamburger adapter, but there's no lights or anything on here to tell me if it's lit up, that I'm producing power. So to give you an idea, I've got this little converter unit here. I simply plug these into here, and now I'll just grab another cable, 2 seconds. So theoretically, just as I was doing off of this side, I should be able to throw charge into the units. Let me just see here, make sure I'm doing that properly. Where I plug this into here, and then I'll swap out where I was plugging into my tablet, and I'll plug in to my tablet here. And yeah, it appears that it's just pulling power from the tablet through and in rather than doing output coming off of this, which is unfortunate. I thought these were bidirectional, and they're sold on eBay as being bidirectional. So either way, one way or the other, I wasn't planning on pulling off these anyways. As stated earlier, it was mainly the ones that are down here that were the output ones that I wanted to kind of pull off of. And I'll just switch it up now. I'll unplug this, and I'll just unplug this. Starting to get busy with the cables, such is life. But I'll plug in the USB-C to USB-C. I'll plug that into here now and plug that into my tablet, and I should be getting the output that I'm expecting. Whew. You can see as soon as I did that, it starts pulling too many amps off of this one side. So if I drop some of this power, this unit can only take so much, right? Yeah. And then it lit up. I'm still feeding in now from my tablet into the device. So one way or the other, there is certain limitations really when it comes to things, but I know that these 4 USB outputs are dedicated outputs. I don't have to worry in that regard of, and as soon as I drop it. So yeah, it was sucking power out of my tablet rather than throwing it into it. But either way, I'll have to get used to the little intricacies that go on with these things. And I can see that I'm on the edge of the 2.4 amps that it wants to put out here. It says it's 0, and over on this side it says it's 1%. But I know that that battery is almost fully charged. So I could run these. To give you an example, in the testing I've done previously, I can run one of these light bulbs for 5 days, 24 hours non-stop off of a single charge. And then to fill it up off of the larger solar panels is 5 hours, and then 12 off of the little folders, to give you an idea of that's the level of depth that these batteries can offer in that regard. And I can run these 3 lights, which to me is, that's throwing a significant amount of light. I can run these 3 lights for roughly about 33 hours non-stop before I got to recharge that battery. But either way, I'll kind of cut it here. We're getting later in the day, so I'm running out of time. I can't really pull out the solar panels and plug it in and start charging this thing in the way it's set up right now, given the time of day we are. So I'll add that into the video, but for my own reality of, I'm going to have to push that off to filming tomorrow. So either way, we're at the point where the output is working well. And now we just have to start throwing charges in off of these MC4 connectors and then off of these plugs from the folding solar panels. And that way we know the power in and the power out's all working, yeah? Okay, well the sun's gone down, so I had to set up some lighting and that kind of stuff, powered by the USB generator, but needless to say, I had to stop and take a break, feed my kids and all that kind of stuff. But now when it comes to these LiFePO charger intakes, just to check the continuity or connectivity and all that kind of stuff, what I found earlier was these weren't lighting up because the USB that I had plugged into them was only providing 1 amp. So I've got a stronger plug, and you can see it's lighting up now. And the battery's fully charged. I let it charge up off camera for a couple hours. And just kind of walk through each one. Oh, the battery keeps shutting down that I'm driving from. There we go. So all 4 of them are lighting up as expected. But yeah, I went and read up on the manual of these because I thought they had an LED and stuff built into them and all that kind of stuff. And they do. But what I found was that they needed to have a higher amp threshold that was flowing through them. The 1 amp that was being supplied just wasn't enough to kind of trigger it to go. So it's good to see all the bits are fully functioning in that regard. So when they plug into the solar panels, that they should have that higher amperage that allows it to flow through. So I'm happy in that regard. And like I say, we're kind of into the evening now. So tomorrow I'll set it up where I connect up the MC4s to solar panels and show how I kind of hook that up, and then I'll hook up the folding solar panels to these little USB inserts and have power flow, and we'll see the lights flick on and that. Won't see any lights in the step down chargers, but I know that, you know, if I'm running off a 100-watt solar panel and I kind of drive it down into there, it should be easy enough to produce the 37-watt maximum that these can generate on each one. So, you know, that's 74 watts or so. So a single 100 watt solar panel should easily be able to power this entire unit at high speed, if you will. But I'll cut it here because, like I say, it's in the evening now. I just really had to go back and research on these things of what was going on with them, because I didn't think that they had LEDs and stuff. And then I just realized that I wasn't throwing enough amps earlier through the line to trigger them to go. But either way, it shows that everything's kind of in a functioning state now. I guess I'll stop and do a pan here to try to get close up. So like I say, we've got the 2 step down DC to DC converters, and they're really going to be the main things that throw a lot of amps into this battery quickly. And then we've got the bus bar I'm going to run through, and then I've got these 4 USB connectors so I can feed in power in, and then I've got the 2 USB ones over here, USB-C, sorry. And then these ones are really the prime output of this entire unit. And hopefully you can see that I've got it up to 100%. But it's really, when it comes to the connections that are on here, the lighting's a little on the poor side, but hold on 2 seconds. Let me see if I can kind of light that up better. There we go. I'm trying to get this on a good angle. But yeah, you can see the multiple USBs, USB-C, the micro USB. Like I say, there is a lightning charger sitting on the side, but I don't run Apple stuff, I run Samsung. That's just the nature of me. But yeah, these are good little units, really. And to give you an idea, these units were about $4 or $5 each. They're dirt cheap. There really is a minimal cost to these. When it comes to these LiFePO USB charge inputs, I think they were like $2 each. And the same with these USB-C inputs. they were like $1.50 or $2 each. And these units here, the step down converters, I think I picked those up for 14 or 15 bucks each. I grabbed a couple of them. So this whole setup realistically only costs what, maybe $100 other than the battery. And the nice part is I can now hook this on to any lithium ion batteries, or lithium iron phosphate batteries that are rated at 3.2 volts. So it's one of those things where if I decide to switch this out, there's all sorts of LiFePO batteries that you can get on the market. And like I said, this one was kind of 4 25 ampere hour ones that were all connected together. And that was really, I just wanted to have them modular in case I decided to change this up and use them as independent batteries. But you can pick up the equivalent of this as a single battery where it doesn't have these kind of, you know, bars and all that kind of stuff on the top. It's just 2 terminals, you know, positive and negative. You know, you can get those on eBay or Amazon that are the exact same capacity of this or larger. But you can normally get those, I want to say about 100, 150 bucks each. So, you know, they're not super expensive. This whole setup is like, you know, maybe 200 bucks. But the nice part is I can use this for years and years. And like I say, when it comes to the outputs, because I'm running on this higher powered battery, I can run full 5 volt, you know, 2 amp loads on these outputs without being concerned about kind of overwhelming the system and that. And really this setup is going to be ideal for me when I go camping and those types of things and I have the family with me and I want to just throw this little kit, you know, all together. This thing weighs maybe 5-10 pounds. I can throw that in the back of the truck and I know that I've got days and days of lighting and I can charge the devices for myself and the kids and all that kind of stuff. I could turn around and run the lighting systems and stuff, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, these lights are solid, right? I talk about lighting systems in the previous video if you haven't watched that, but it really gives me the ability where if I go off grid with the family for a couple days and go camping or any of that kind of business, I can turn around and run indefinitely when it comes to charging all their tablets and devices and all that stuff, run basic lighting, charge my cell phones and all those kinds of things at a family level, if you will, right? So, like I say, I'll cut it here because we are just into the evening, but I just had to stop and make comment because I went and did further research on why these weren't lighting up and that kind of stuff, and that's what it was they need to have above a 1 amp threshold before they start to trigger and go. And I was just supplying it off of a really low powered USB output. But yeah, I'll cut it here and I'll cut back tomorrow in the daytime and when I hook these up to the panels and that kind of thing, yeah? Okay, well, it's the next morning now. I did a bit of testing in the evening just to kind of see how things flow here. And I didn't show that on camera, but just wanted to show that, yes, my tablet is taking a charge. Hopefully the camera's picking that up all right. At the same point in time, my cell phone is taking a charge. I'm trying to get that as close as I can. And I've got both these lights running all through the unit. But these little output modules, the little battery modules, what I found was they, hopefully the camera's picking that up, they automatically switch to 2.4 amps down from the quick charge as soon as I plug in the lighting. So it's unfortunate really of, like I said, toggle it on and off and that kind of business. But if I have a light plugged in at the same time as I'm trying to quick charge, it'll just default it down to the 2.4 amps. So that's a little bit unfortunate. The same thing happens, like I say, on both units because they're both the same, you know, make and model, if you will. And you can see, hopefully the camera picked up the bing, and I'm still taking the charge on the tablet here. And I've got both these lights running. So it really had nothing to do with the battery. Like I say, I knew I had to play around with this a bit just to kind of get bearing to what the issues were and that kind of thing. And like I say, even when I unplug the additional, and those would be all how the folding solar panels will plug in, even with that, Like I say, it doesn't matter if it's plugged in or not. The quick charge that's there just automatically turns off. So it's must be a safety feature that it doesn't allow that many amps to flow through these little battery modules. Okay, so I get a little tiny clear patch in the weather. It's been pretty miserable weather, but I've shown these little folding solar panels in previous videos, but I own 2 of them. So the thinking really is I've just plugged into the USB. I've plugged into both of them that exist on the top portion, and those cables just feed out and into the little LiFePO chargers, and hopefully you can see that on the camera that they're all lighting up, so they're all throwing charge into the device as expected. So this is good. It lets me know these little folding solar panels have the full ability to charge my batteries up when I'm out in the field. And this whole setup together all folds down, is compact. I can easily just throw it in a bag and take it with me. But I could use this for years and years and years now when it comes to being able to run this monster USB solar generator. I can run this for extended periods of time without issue. I'll just turn on the outputs, and one of the lights is even flashing green. I don't know if when it gets really good voltage it starts to peak out, but I'm trying to get this on camera as best I can because it is, you know, brightness. But it says 3%, but that's based on a lithium ion, or based on lithium ion charge voltage. You can see the one on the left here is flickering between fully charged and charging. It's kind of going back and forth between the two. Just unplug that and replug it back in, see if it resets itself. No, it's still, so the voltage tolerance is subtly different from one circuit to the next, but either way, I knew the batteries were pretty full up to begin with, so I'm in good state in that regard. But this was an example of how these little USB based solar panels, like I say, I can plug in more than one connection off the single solar panel into the unit to take a charge. But I just had 2 of them, so it was easy enough to set them both up. And sorry about the noise in the background. It's, you know, I'm in an urban environment, so the next step of the video, I guess, would be just to show you how I hook up the solar panels, larger solar panels, to this setup instead of the little folders. But there's a good example right there, like I say, where 3 of them are still putting a charge in, the other one is already flashing that it's full. And I knew, because I had fully charged this battery a day or 2 ago and only drawn down off it where I charged my tablet once or twice and that kind of thing, I knew there was still lots of power left in this. But either way, there's the example of using the folding solar panels, and yeah, you can see it will somewhat set in a charge off of that first one on the left here, right in here. But it's right on the threshold of what the lithium iron phosphate sees as being full, so I knew that I was close to that range one way or the other. I could easily charge off of the lithium ion USB-C ports and go in through that and drive higher voltage, and I could fill this battery up. But this is really charging at the rate it should be for this chemistry of battery without overcharging it, and that's exactly what I wanted. But this whole setup's maybe 5-10 pounds tops. It's you know, pretty light and easy to throw into a bag and just take with me. I'll stop here and then I'll show a quick snapshot of how compact this is when it's all folded up and that kind of thing. You'll see it's really small. Alright, and like I say, I just tipped out in the front yard to kind of catch a bit of the sun that was coming. There's a little window of sun, so it's good to show these examples at this point in time, but you can see that the board is pretty well the same size as the folding solar panels. This is a complete setup right there. Now, separate from the light bulbs potentially that I want to plug in and a couple cables to plug in my tablet and phone, this whole thing is really compact. I mean, there's the size of my hand in comparison, right? It's a very small, lightweight, portable system, and this thing's relatively powerful. these two solar panels together are rated at 60 watts. So, you know, when it comes to being able to charge the USB and or charge up the battery to drive USB and stuff, that should be ample amounts of power for when I'm out in the field to be able to run this exact little micro USB setup for years and years on end without issue. The only thing I could see is I might want to upgrade my solar panels to something that's even more, you know, rugged and more waterproof and all that kind of stuff, but they're pretty good quality for what they are. But if I was to just set this up and leave it out in a remote location and have it out for an extended period of time, I'd want to upgrade those solar panels to be 100% all-weather compatible without issue, that kind of stuff, right? But they're easily available on the web, so it's not hard to find those things. But I'll cut it now, and I'll kind of shift over and show you how I can hook up my larger solar panels. I'll just kind of shift camera angles here of out in the backyard. I've got my solar array. If you've watched previous videos of mine, then you've seen the full detailed build of that, but I've got 995 watts of solar panels sitting out there right now, and I've got my crate build that I've showed in detail in previous videos, and I've got solar panels hooked into this MPPT charge controller. They're not putting out huge amounts of power, but they feed in right here. So like I say, I'll shift camera angles, I'll unplug those, and then show you how I plug them into this little monster USB solar generator, and then I'll wrap the video up, yeah? Okay, so I'm just going to show you an example of how I hook up regular solar panels. So I've got these MC4 connectors, and I've got two different sets of them. I'm just going to pop off the ones that I have going to my solar crate build that I've shown in previous videos. So if you haven't seen the details on that, it's worth going and watching. And hopefully I'm catching that on camera. Just the plugs coming off the solar panels, nothing fancy. Now, I could easily turn around and just hook these up where, you know, I plug the male into the female and vice versa, and just run one single line, and that would be easy enough. But I'm only able to get up to 37 watts of input power by doing that, and because I'm running off of a 200 watt solar panel out in the yard, it's not, like I say, not getting full sun today, but because I'm running off of something that's larger like that, I have these Y connectors for MC4s, which really are fairly simple units. You can get these on eBay for next to nothing as well. And the thinking really is, I'm just going to take my two male ends and plug those in to the one side, and plug in the two female males on this side. And you can't really go wrong with these wirings. They're pretty simple, as long as you've connected your MC4 connections properly to begin with. And then I'm just going to hook those directly on to my solar panels. And like I say, 200 watt solar panel would be ample to run this. You know, in direct sunlight, it would provide more than enough. Even a 100 watt solar panel normally would provide the full amperage needed for both these units. Okay, so I just used my little lithium ion Bear Grylls 20,000 milliamp battery that I've shown in lots of previous examples to kind of give me the power, where it's just USB plugging in, nothing fancy. But because the clouds have moved back in again, I'm not getting that great a sun. My solar panels, the larger ones that I'm plugged into there, just aren't producing very many amps at this point in time. So successfully, I'm still taking a charge off of, quote unquote, the folding solar panel inputs in that regard. But if these MC4s, if that solar panel was out in the yard, gets a bit of direct sunlight on it, these will switch off automatically and just kick over to showing green lights. There's no harm in leaving all this stuff plugged in per se, but it's one of those things where most of the time when the full sun is shining on the larger solar panel, the amount of amps at the voltage of the 3.7 thrown just will overpower, and it'll just light these up to make it look like the lithium iron phosphate battery is fully charged. Even if it isn't, these larger solar panels are just that much more powerful. They'll just dominate the situation, if you will. But that's about it for this video. I'll wrap it up at this point in time, and like I say, there's my monster USB solar generator. Can take in different solar panels, whether it be USB based or MC4 based, which are both kind of industry standards, and it has the capacity to store 320 watts worth of power. And I could easily just pop these off and hook on larger batteries if I wanted to. Then I could use this setup for years and years and years and years. There's really, you know, the longevity of this, I'd expect it to last. You know, I might have it where individual components give after a few years. It could easily be replaced. Like I say, these are $2-3 items. They're not expensive bits. This whole, you know, build out was only about $200. And I know it's kind of hackery, you're using glue gun and everything else to kind of strap things down. That's just nature of how I like to roll, because I know that this stuff is going to be thrown into the back of a truck. It's going to be used when I go out camping and that kind of stuff. My only real concern about this entire setup is, and I might turn around and use some nail polish or something to do some waterproofing, but it's really to waterproof these circuits as much as I possibly can, so that when I am out in the field, if a bit of rain splashes on it or anything, it's not going to kill these units. You know, it is difficult to come up with good materials. You know, the glue gun stuff works okay, but it's not ideal. But you know, some couple coats of clear nail polish across these things, as long as I don't get them into the inputs, you know, should be okay in that regard. But that's one of the vulnerabilities about using these types of things, because you have these USB inputs and stuff where they're exposed to the elements. You know, if water gets into them, it's just like any electronics. You know, water's the enemy to electronics. So other than, like I say, just kind of giving it a bit of additional waterproofing, this thing's pretty well ready to go out in the field. And if I'm using this in the back of the truck where this actual main board isn't going to be out in the rain or anything, I'll just have the solar panels sitting on the roof of the truck and that kind of stuff, because I got a cap on the back. I could end up using this in the back for extended periods of time without any issues and not really worry about it. So if you enjoy this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching, yeah? Cheers.